Hey there, my friends. Welcome to the Links to Messiah podcast, where we are passionate about teaching our children all about the connections between the Old and New Testament. I'm your host, Rachel Links Kushner, also known as the Chief Enthusiasm Officer of Links to Messiah. And I am so thrilled to have you join us today. Come along and discover how your family and children can grow in their faith as you discover the beautiful links that God reveals throughout Scripture about the history of His people and His Son Jesus, our Messiah. Well, hello and welcome to our guest today, Candice. You'll have to help me. I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
And then you slip.
Hyslip. Okay, that's what I thought, but I wanted to be sure. So Candice and I have met on Instagram, which I think is social media at its finest, I always say. I know there's lots of yucky stuff associated with social media, but, you know, you and I both have just found this beautiful community connecting with other believers who really, you know, think that the Old Testament, the Jewish feasts and all of that are very important. So right before we recorded, we got into a little conversation that I want to continue. Before we do that though, Candice, since this is the first time I'm meeting you, I don't have a formal intro. So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? And then we're going to dig into the history that we might have together that we don't know about.
My name is Candice Hyslip, and I am a fourth-generation messianic Jew.
I didn't know that.
My grandfather was the first one. No, I'm sorry, my great-grandfather was to come to faith, and he was acting in silent movies, and he was a town sheriff. Yeah, and so he was the first one to come to faith, and then just all four of my grandparents have Jewish heritage and were believers. So it's a great thing. And most everyone in my family is also in full-time ministry. So that's pretty cool too.
What? Oh my goodness. I have a gazillion questions running through my head. Okay. So before we started, and I said, we got to stop because I want to have this, I want to have this recorded. So you said, where do you live? I said, I'm in Southern Indiana. I grew up in Philadelphia. You said, oh, do you go to Beth Yeshua? I said, no, but my father pastored this little congregation in Philadelphia, 19th and Chestnut. You said, how old are you? Wait, I think I know your sister. So, okay, let's dive into that before we get into talking about Old Testament and children and the feasts and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I remember being a teenager at Messiah Conference, and me said that their dad pastored a messianic congregation called Beth
Messiah in Philly.
Right. And so, but I don't remember meeting you, so it must have been one of your sisters.
Must have been one of my sisters.
They were around my age.
Okay, so I'm 50.
Give or take a couple of years.
Okay, so I'm 53. Maybe I'm 54. I'm so bad. I have to do the math every time.
45.
You probably met my youngest sister. So there's three of us, and her name's Miriam. Wow, that is so crazy. So you
what was your name?
Links. Links. So my dad's name was Herb Links, hence Links to Messiah, right?
Oh, I didn't understand that, but that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
So you are a fourth generation Jewish believer. I'm a third generation Jewish believer, but my story's a little different because my dad was the first one to come to Christ. He in turn led my parents accepted Christ, or grandparents, his folks accepted the Lord before they passed away. Wow. And then of course we were raised in a Messianic Jewish home.
Wow, that's so cool.
That is so cool, Candice. I love this history and this connection that I had no idea about. I knew that I would like you right away because I'll tell you why, because I had sent you a message on Instagram asking if you would be a guest on the podcast, and you responded with a voicemail. Most people don't do that. And I heard your voice. You have just a very pleasing beautiful voice. And I thought,
Thank
ooh,
you.
I like her.
Thanks. Thank you. I
Oh,
appreciate
that's so neat.
it. Thank you.
So, okay, so where do you live?
I live
Without
in Phoenix.
revealing too much.
No, I live in Phoenix, Arizona.
That's right, you're in Phoenix,
Yeah.
and my one
Yeah.
sister, Miriam, who maybe you met, lives just outside of Phoenix. Oh my goodness, this is
How
craziness.
incredible is this? All right.
Yeah,
This is really cool. We'll have to talk afterwards with a little bit more detail. So,
for sure. I'm definitely game for that. So, can you explain to me and to the listeners, your
Mhm,
Instagram is tent and table. Tell
yeah.
us what that means. I'm guessing it's hospitality.
Yes. So
Tell me more.
a huge part of Yeshua's ministry on earth had to do with restoring community. And he did that.
Yes.
A large part of what he did happened through hospitality, especially in the book of Luke. He's either going to a feast or a dinner, he's coming from one, he's sitting at one. The
Right.
longest recorded conversation that we have of anyone in the Bible is with Yeshua at a table, at a Passover table in the book of John.
I
It's
didn't
the
realize
longest.
that.
Yeah,
That's the
and
longest recorded conversation in all of
yes,
Scripture.
yes, and it's at a table.
At a
And so
table.
there is this beautiful restoration that the Lord is bringing in his body, things that were established in ancient times and things that are being restored even today. And one of those aspects is the aspect of hospitality, just making room for people at the table through a healthy eye to eye and heart to heart connection.
Heart to heart, eye to eye. I love that. That is one of the things that I do like so much about the Jewish holidays. We are
Mm,
sitting around tables with
yes,
generations. We have grandma and
yes,
grandpas and aunties and
yes,
cousins and the
yes,
babies and the toddlers, making
yes.
a mess of everything.
Yeah,
But we're all sitting at a table retelling,
right.
commemorating these
You're right.
beautiful stories.
You're so right. Yes,
Oh,
it's beautiful.
Candace,
and
Candace, Candace,
just
Candace.
really the restoration of the family unit. There's been
Mhm.
such an attack on on gender, on identity, on our identity in Messiah, on the marriage covenant, on parenting, and we're in a generation right now where people are so hungry for something real, so hungry for something authentic, so have a
Hungry
lingering
for
cough.
hungry for connection. We want
So hungry for
connection.
yes.
And I think part of this whole social media stuff is like we feel like we're connected,
Hmm.
but we're not. We're not, like you
Right,
said, sitting around a table, heart to
right,
heart, eye to
right,
eye. Very
right,
different.
right.
Hey there, my friends. I'm interrupting this podcast for just a minute to tell you about the ultimate freebie packet for your family for the upcoming spring holidays of Purim and Passover. If you're looking for some fun and educational activities to keep your kids engaged, we've got you covered. You can head over to linkstomessiah.com and click on the resources tab to grab your ultimate Purim and Passover freebie packet. Dive into the world of Purim by creating and decorating your own crown, just like Queen Esther. Challenge your little ones with a thrilling Purim maze and crossword puzzle. Explore vocabulary related to Purim with the unique coloring page that we created just for you. But that's not all. Immerse your children in the Passover story with a Moses character coloring page, complete with Let My People Go written at the bottom. You can get creative with a Seder plate to color and cut out. And my favorite, embark on a Red Sea craft adventure. And for a dash of challenge, don't miss our memory game and our 10 plagues coloring sheets. It is an epic adventure of learning and fun for your kids. So visit the linkstomessiah.com website and click on the resources tab, or you can click the link in the show notes. Now back to our conversation.
And there's something that's so healing about being in a safe place where you're seen, where your needs can be met, physically, and then then once the needs of your body are met, and it's beautiful when that happens around the table with, a meal. It doesn't have to be fancy. It can even be Chick-fil-A.
Absolutely.
There's something so
Yes.
significant that happens when we are sitting around a table and the needs of the body are met. Then after that, we can come to a place where we're settled and the needs of the soul start being met, and the needs of the spirit are met. And it's the most authentic and beautiful holistic ministry. And a huge part of Yeshua's ministry happened around a table. Oftentimes when we think about Yeshua, we think about him ministering, in the highways and the byways, which he did, or teaching in the synagogues, which he did, or healing the sick and raising the dead, which he did, all of that. But something that is not often highlighted is the ministry that happened around the table.
It's so well said. And I completely agree that it can be the most casual of meals. We have a friend who, she says, I don't cook, right?
Right.
But of course, you have to eat, right? So a lot of times when she comes over, and it's usually just my husband, 3 of us, and if I'm not cooking, she'll say, I'm going to stop by something
Yeah.
on the way and I'll bring a meal. And it doesn't matter. And I'll tell you what, we have some of the most meaningful, significant, powerful
Yes. Yes.
conversations once we've
Yes.
settled down, like just as you
Mhm.
described, right? You're getting situated at the table, everybody's eating, you're passing your food, you're
Right.
chit-chatting
Right.
about
Right.
sort of the things that don't matter yet. But then your meal, after your meal, or even towards the middle or end,
Right.
you start to have
Right.
real conversation, the heart to heart that you discussed.
And it doesn't just nourish the body, it nourishes the soul, it nourishes the spirit. And that's what we need. I mean,
Yes.
we are very complex as humans, and we need our body, our soul, and our spirit to be taken care of and nourished. And it's not that it's always effortless. There does need to be effort and intention, but it doesn't have
Right.
to be difficult. It doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be some kind of Martha
Right.
Stewart jumping through hoops and, you know, riding a pony
Right.
and, the
Right.
most
Yes, yes,
extravagant
yes.
silverware on the table. It just needs to be a safe place where people can settle down and connect.
A safe place. Yeah. I've learned that. I've sort of ditched all that. Like I used to be so kind of wrapped up
Mm.
in like the presentation and how it looked and yada yada. And now I'm like, oh, you're
I
here?
love
Great.
that.
I need you to chop this. Let's go. And I think honestly that helps build community. Somebody told me one time that what they did intentionally was like have a towel on their head and a robe when people started arriving. So it just changed it to very casual instead of this like, you know, intensive sort of everything has to be perfect. The salt and pepper must be on the table before the meal has begun, whatever. I'm so over that. I'm with you. I'm like, let's sit down, let's talk, let's have a real
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Oh, this has been fun
And
already.
I think there's room for fancy meals and there's room
Sure.
for casual meals. But the point is
Yes.
to create a safe place where people can
A safe
connect.
place. And like you said, you said the word intention. Like, what is the intention? You know, right.
Mm,
Does it matter that we
mhm.
have fancy plates or we're eating on paper plates? It doesn't matter. It's the intention and the heart. I love that, Candice.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's jump into talking about the Old Testament, the
Mhm.
feasts that Jesus celebrated, and let's talk about like I want to know from your perspective, why is it important to teach our children when they're small about the Old Testament? Why does that matter to you?
Oh, that's a great question. And I'm sure that people can discuss volumes on that. But, you know, if you're coming from a Jewish background, well, then this is our history, and this is the history of our people, and we commemorate it through holidays every year, all throughout the year. And it's important because you don't just get it one time around. And the way that the Lord teaches us is in cycles. And so every year we have so many opportunities to like you said, to review, to commemorate, to celebrate the history of our people. And for Gentiles, I think that it's so important too, because even if they're not Jewish, this is the foundation of the house, right? The foundation of
Yes.
the house. And then you have the prophets that are like the walls, and then you have the gospel that's, like the roof and filling the house with beautiful things. And it's really hard to have an established understanding of the gospel without knowing the background of what led up to that point.
Mm-hmm. I always tell people, like, I'm such a visual learner. So as you described the foundation, the walls, the roof, and then what comes in, I can relate to that. I can understand that. I was just speaking with somebody yesterday, and he brought up kind of exactly what you were saying, that there's this cycle, that there's these
Yes.
moed
Yes.
appointments,
Hmm.
right? There are all these
Yes.
moedim. There's Passover, there's Sukkot, all the
Hmm.
feasts. There's a cycle where every year we have these
Yes.
appointments where we are sitting around the table celebrating and retelling the
Right. Right.
stories.
I think it's incredible because, they are appointed times. They are, if you go to the book of Leviticus, chapter 23, it says that they're Mikra Kodesh. They are holy rehearsals of things to come. And so there needs to be a connection to it. One of the things that I personally love about how, the Lord is so intentional in every aspect of Scripture, but even down to Leviticus 23, when it says, and the Lord told Moses, speak to the children of Israel, saying, these are my appointed feasts. So, you have the Lord as an author, you have Moses as that prophet speaking the word of the Lord, and then you have the children of Israel as the audience. And, throughout Scripture, anytime a Gentile celebrates something that is part connected to the Torah, it's always in relationship with the Jewish people. You actually don't have
Yeah.
any space in the Bible where Gentiles are just celebrating things on their own. It doesn't happen. Every time that they do that, they're always in relationship with Jewish people. And so not only,
Right.
yeah,
I've never thought about
yeah,
that. That's such a simple statement that I've never thought about.
well,
Brilliant.
the amazing thing is that of course, there's an open door for Gentiles to participate, but biblically speaking, it's not just for their own gratification. It's to create relational bonds with the Jewish community. It's to promote a deeper sense of unity. It's not just for themselves, but it's to bring us together. And I think that's stunning.
I think that is Candice. Wow. So beautiful. Okay. I really could talk with you for probably
Yeah.
hours, but I do like to keep the
Yeah.
podcast really short. So I'm going to ask you
Okay.
one more question. We'll
Okay.
wrap it up. We can talk offline, but I share with our audience some just very easy, practical ways that, like, parents, educators, grandparents can um, teach some of these Old Testament truths, feasts, whatever it may be, to their kids. Some real easy things.
Well, I want to say that, just going back to highlight what I talked about, being in relationship with Jewish people, if you are not Jewish and you're teaching Sunday school, perhaps consider reaching out to a local messianic synagogue and say, hey, we're going to do a series with our Sunday school kids on the festivals of the Lord. Do you have someone, even if it's not the rabbi, but do you have someone who can come and tell us about what it was like growing up to celebrate the feast? Even if there's like that person is not teaching, they can tell stories of what it was like and what those holidays mean to them as a Jewish believer connected in Messiah. Because, of course, for Gentiles to celebrate the feast, they're getting the roots of their faith, but it's also
Right.
an opportunity to build those bonds with the Jewish people and a Messianic community. So I think that is one way to do that. Even if you're talking about other holidays that might not be biblical, like Holocaust Memorial Day, maybe inviting a local Holocaust survivor to come and share.
Yes, right.
But there's something that it's an opportunity to build bonds of love. And right now, I feel like with the world and the condition that it is, and with anti-Semitism at an all-time high, the Jewish people, we are looking for other Gentiles to say, not only am I interested in your God and interested in, some kind of, Jewish devotional, I'm committed to you, to advocating for you, to love you,
Yes,
to be with you, and to stand by you, not just in the good times, not just when we're talking about David and Goliath, or the holidays, but I'm
for
committed to
sure.
you in relationship. Let me show you my love. So,
Yeah, Candice, that's so critical what you just said, and it brings to mind, with all the anti-Semitism happening in, I was going to say in the States, but really all around the world
right,
right now.
right.
We had a friend who we were having dinner with, or we were out. I don't remember. We were together doing some. I think we were looking at Christmas lights together.
Okay.
I don't remember, but she said, and she's a Gentile,
Mm-hmm.
and she said, no matter what happens, I stand with you, and I will do
Mm.
whatever I can do to
Oh,
protect you.
that's
And
beautiful.
I was like, yeah, it was beautiful. I have goosebumps just thinking about her saying that. We were sitting in the car, and it was just a very meaningful, powerful statement. And it didn't take much to say that.
Right.
And we know her well, and I know she meant it. Like she
Oh,
will fight for us. Like I know she will.
I love
So
it. And you know what? Right now,
beautiful.
we, as a Jewish community, like this is not something that we can fight all by ourselves. And
Right.
and even I think that there's just so many opportunities, even down to, teaching a Sunday school about the feast of the Lord. Okay, now this is an opportunity to also build relationships and to say this is not just something ancient. This is connected to the person sitting, as our guest right now in front of you.
Yes.
My mind often thinks in relationships. So
I
that
can tell. I can tell.
that
Yeah, I like that.
that's
That's why I
where
think
I
I knew I'd like you right away
get.
because I'm very similar. Well, I want to thank you so much for your
Oh,
time, Candice
thanks for having me
Hyslip.
on, Rachel.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'll do is in the show notes, I'll link like your tent and table Instagram handle so
There we
people
go.
can go follow. That's what I was trying
Wonderful.
to say.
Wonderful.
All right. Thank you so much.
Blessings to you.
To you too. Thank you for being a part of the Links to Messiah podcast family. Your support means the world to us, and your feedback and engagement keep us going strong. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share this podcast with your friends and family. Let's continue growing this incredible community together. Until next week, keep reading the Bible to your children, keep their curiosity burning, and keep coming back for more tips to anchor your child's faith to Jesus, our Messiah. This is your host, Rachel Lynx Kushner, signing off with a big smile and a heart full of gratitude.